Before the 1940s, the only somewhat effective treatment for leprosy was a painful injection of oil from a tropical tree. Um,
Mm,
Pretty awful, right? But it all changed thanks to Alice Ball,
yeah.
this brilliant chemist who revolutionized how we fight leprosy. And that's what we'll be diving into today.
A fascinating story for sure, especially considering the significant obstacles she faced as a young African-American woman in the early 1900s.
Yeah,
It's a story of resilience, brilliance, and really a fight for recognition.
absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. What sparked her interest in science?
Well, her grandfather was a photographer, and he used all these different chemicals in his darkroom.
Oh, wow.
And that exposure likely sparked Alice's curiosity about chemistry early on. It's amazing how these small things can sometimes lead to lifelong passions, you know?
Yeah, it's really incredible. From there, she went on to study at the University of Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
which is impressive in itself. But then she went on to become the first woman and the first African-American to earn a master's degree in chemistry from the university.
Exactly. It's a testament to her intelligence and her determination, for sure.
Definitely. We hear a lot about the barriers women and people of color faced back then. What were some of the specific challenges she might have encountered?
Oh, so many. Just imagine labs and classrooms filled predominantly with men. And her presence there as a woman, let alone an African-American woman, would have been met with,
Yeah.
skepticism, maybe even outright resistance.
Wow.
Just the access to resources, mentorship, even basic respect, those would have been constant battles for her.
I can't even imagine. And yet, in spite of all of this, she persevered, and her work focused on leprosy. What was the impact of this disease at the time?
Leprosy was devastating. At the time, it was shrouded in so much fear and misunderstanding. Sufferers were isolated, been huge social stigmas, and often they were forced to live in secluded colonies.
Oh, wow.
And treatment options were extremely limited. The most effective one, Talmogra oil, was really difficult to administer effectively.
From what I've read, Chalmoger oil was more of a crude extract than a refined treatment.
You got it, it couldn't be injected because it was so thick, and it caused painful accesses when they tried to administer it that way.
Oh, wow.
So the only other option was oral ingestion, which was largely ineffective and caused severe nausea. It's tough to imagine the desperation of both the patients and the doctors who were searching for a better solution.
Yeah, it's just awful. So that's where Alice Boll comes in. How did she transform this ineffective oil into a viable treatment?
Well, this is where her brilliance really shines through. She developed a technique to isolate the ethyl esters of the fatty acids in the Talmogra oil,
Okay.
making it injectable and much easier for the body to absorb.
So she essentially created a new form of the oil that could actually be injected safely and effectively.
Exactly, a revolutionary breakthrough. And this process, which became known as the Ball method, really changed everything for leprosy treatment. It offered a real glimmer of hope to thousands of people suffering from this incredibly debilitating disease. It's hard to overstate just how significant her discovery was, especially given the limited resources and technology they had back then.
It's really tragic that she died so young, just 24 years old. And to think of what more she could have accomplished if she had more time.
It really is, and the injustice doesn't even end there. The president of the University of Hawaii at the time, Arthur Dean, he actually took credit for her work.
No way.
Yeah, he published findings based on her research, but called it the Dean method.
It's just appalling how often women and minorities were robbed of recognition for their work. So how did the truth about Alice Ball's contributions finally come to light?
Years later, a researcher named Dr. Harry Holm,
Okay.
he was looking through the archives, and he uncovered the truth about Alice's role in developing the injectable Talmogra oil treatment. He really worked tirelessly to restore her rightful place in scientific history.
It's amazing that people like him dedicated themselves to correcting the historical record. What tangible impact did the Ball method have on leprosy treatment and the people suffering from the disease?
The Ball method became the standard treatment for leprosy for decades. It offered relief and hope to countless people who previously faced a very bleak prognosis. Patients who had resigned themselves to a life of isolation and suffering now had a chance to rejoin their communities and live much fuller lives.
It must have been so rewarding for her to see her research translate into a treatment that actually helped people.
Absolutely. And even though she sadly didn't live to see the full impact of her work, it's a testament to her scientific vision and her dedication to improving the lives of others. Her story is really a powerful example of how one person's brilliance can have a ripple effect across generations.
Yeah, for sure. It's fascinating how her work, conducted almost a century ago, still resonates so strongly today.
It really does. Alice Ball's story is a stark reminder to recognize and celebrate the contributions of all scientists, no matter their background or gender. It challenges us to look beyond these traditional narratives and uncover those hidden stories of those who have been overlooked or marginalized.
You mentioned that the ball method was the standard treatment for leprosy for a long time. Did anything eventually replace it?
Yeah, by the 1940s, they developed sulfone drugs, which proved to be even more effective in treating leprosy. But the ball method was still a crucial stepping stone in the fight against the disease. It paved the way for future advancements and offered relief to so many people at a time when there weren't really any other options.
It's interesting that we often focus on the big names in science, the Einsteins and Curies, but there's so many unsung heroes like Alice Ball whose contributions are just as impactful.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Her story reminds us that scientific progress is rarely the result of just one brilliant mind working alone. It's built upon the efforts of countless individuals who contribute their own unique skills and insights, often facing their own challenges and setbacks along the way.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget that scientists are people too, with their own motivations and struggles and personal stories that shape their work.
Exactly, and these stories are just as important as the scientific discoveries themselves, because they remind us that science is a human endeavor driven by curiosity, passion, and a desire to understand the world around us.
Before we move on, I want to go back to the science behind the ball method for a second. Could you walk us through the key steps she took to make Kalmwurger oil injectable?
Sure, so it involved a process called esterification. Basically, Alice figured out how to isolate the fatty acids from the Kalmwurger oil and then modify their chemical structure by reacting them with alcohol.
Okay.
This created these ethyl esters, which had a much lower viscosity than the original oil, which made them suitable for injection.
So she basically chemically altered the oil to change its physical properties.
Exactly, and that required not only a deep understanding of chemistry, but also real creativity and meticulous experimentation. Remember, she was working in the early 1900s, long before a lot of the advanced techniques and equipment we have today. It was a truly remarkable achievement, especially for the time.
We've talked about the scientific and social impact of her work, but I'm curious about the personal toll it might have taken. Do we know anything about her experience as a researcher during that time?
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of details about her personal life and experiences, but we can learn something from the historical context and the challenges she faced. Imagine the pressure of conducting groundbreaking research while also navigating a society that was full of prejudice and discrimination.
Yeah. It must have been so isolating at times. Do we know if she had any mentors or colleagues who supported her?
Specific details about her support system are scarce, but it's unlikely that she received the level of mentorship and encouragement that's common today. The scientific community back then was much less inclusive, especially towards women and minorities.
I can only imagine the resilience and inner strength it took for her to persevere in that kind of environment.
It really speaks to her character and her unwavering dedication to her work.
Looking at her legacy today, what are some key takeaways we should remember?
Alice Ball's story reminds us that scientific progress is a collective effort, and we have to actively work to create a more inclusive and equitable scientific community where every single person's contributions are valued and celebrated.
Yeah, that's so important. Her story also highlights how scientific breakthroughs often come from tackling real-world problems, just like the need for that effective leprosy treatment.
Exactly. It's a reminder that science isn't just about abstract theories and equations. It's about using our knowledge to improve human lives and make a real difference in the world.
It also underscores the importance of scientific integrity and giving credit where it's due, which unfortunately didn't happen for Alice Ball initially, and her story is not unique.
Right. There are countless other unsung heroes whose contributions have been overlooked or intentionally erased from history.
It's a call to action for all of us to be more aware, more curious, and more willing to dig deeper to uncover the untold stories of those who have been unjustly marginalized.
It's about challenging the traditional narratives and making sure that history accurately reflects the diverse range of people who have shaped scientific progress.
And it's about celebrating those who, like Alice Ball, dared to defy expectations and make a lasting impact on the world despite facing so many obstacles. It's great to see that her legacy continues to inspire scientists today.
Oh, absolutely. The University of Hawaii has really gone above and beyond to honor her contributions. They dedicated a plaque on campus, they established a scholarship in her name, and there's even a day dedicated to celebrating her achievements.
That's fantastic, such a fitting tribute to her impact. As we wrap up our deep dive into Alice Ball's life and legacy, what do you think her story can teach us about scientific progress?
Well, it reminds us that scientific progress isn't always this straight line, It's often messy and full of unexpected turns. and it can involve people from all walks of life making contributions, big and small.
Right? It's rarely just one genius working alone. It's a collaborative effort with contributions from all these different people with their own unique skills and experiences.
Exactly. And sometimes those contributions come from really unexpected places, from people who don't necessarily fit that traditional image of what we think a scientist should be.
Yeah.
Alice Ball's story really pushes us to broaden our understanding of who can be a scientist and where innovation can come from.
Definitely. It's a reminder that brilliance can come from anywhere, regardless of gender, race, or background. It's up to us to create a more inclusive scientific community where everyone has the opportunity to contribute and make a difference.
Absolutely. And if we kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture,
Yes.
it speaks to the importance of diversity in science. When we have a wider range of perspectives and experiences, we ask better questions, we challenge those old assumptions, and we're more likely to make discoveries that benefit everyone.
It's about creating an environment where everyone feels welcomed and respected and empowered to pursue their scientific curiosity.
Exactly. And that also means addressing those systemic barriers that still exist for women and minorities in STEM fields. We need to make sure everyone has equal access to education, mentorship, funding, and those opportunities to advance their careers.
Well said. So as we finish up our deep dive into Alice Ball's incredible life and work, what is the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I think it's a simple but powerful message. Never underestimate the power of one person to make a difference. Alice Ball's story is a testament to the impact an individual can have on the world, even when facing such immense adversity. Her legacy continues to inspire us to push boundaries, to challenge the status quo, and to use our knowledge and skills to create a more just and equitable world.
Such a powerful and inspiring message. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop searching for those hidden figures whose stories deserve to be told, because you might just uncover the next Alice Ball waiting to be rediscovered.